He is covered in blood and number 3 attacks him to avoid being punched in the stomach. Number 2 hits him in the neck and receives an elbow strike. He turns around and strikes him again in the face, blocking part of number 2's face. He wonders if he succeeded. He is surprised that they are updating the fighting level to the 2nd level. Blood attacks him from behind and restricts his limbs. After they catch him, slave number 2 attacks him and faces him. He has one punch in the face and another in his span, and he lands a barrage of punches, so that notifications appear informing him of an increase in both his body's toughness and his resistance to bleeding, and the pain leaves him after he was killed by the beating and his endurance decreased to 10%, which is the condition of activating his strongest skill in hell, so that he can recover again. He gasps with heavy breaths, wondering what if he had to escape. He says that he has not hit them even with a single blow yet, and since they are using martial arts, he must adjust the balance of power and use the storeroom to extract a weapon from it, which was a reinforced stick, not durable, but its attack power is impressively high. He sets out to attack them, so that number 1 tries to defend himself. To be hit by that stick, he broke his arm. Number 1 looks at his broken arm to update the combat data, and his other arm opens to let all kinds of weapons come out of it. Mathan, after spending 5 days and 8 hours alive, and after some time of fighting, throwing punches, and receiving blows, was somehow able to restrain them. He says that his action, that's why it's not like men, but he's forced to do it. The battle assistant does it. They said that he would attack him one by one and unleashed a barrage of attacks on one of them until he was able to reach his energy center, preparing to destroy him, but he stopped when the puppet upgraded his combat level to the 3rd level. He laughed. They said that he could do it if he wanted to, but the stronger they became, the stronger he became, and after a while we hear him wondering how many times they did this to him, so that he died with a neck break, another with a karate kick, another with a wrestling move, and another with a jiu-jitsu leg. Almost bloody, they decided to open a martial arts club and present performances to him. He asks about how many martial arts those scoundrels know to stand a number. He was in a kung fu stance, looking at him with a wide smile and standing facing him. They said that he would not lose in a fight with punches. He would attack him to avoid, then attack him again with a sudden back kick, with which he was able to injure him, bringing the level of the fight to the 4th level. While he was eagerly waiting to see the 4th level, he poked his eyes and fell, and the screaming began. The pain caused number 4 to open his mouth and bite his leg to kick his head, which increased, and he cursed and insulted him until he died. On the 9th time, Hyun realized 3 facts. The first is that the level of combat ends at the 4th level. For this reason, it does not differ, but rather the fighting continues. Secondly, these scarecrows have a fixed pattern of movement. Even if there is any difference, it will stop to modify its movements. Thirdly, there is no need to destroy it. If it receives a certain amount of damage, it will stop moving automatically. This means that there is no need to destroy it completely. With this result that Hyun arrived at, after realizing these 3 facts, he was able to complete the mission and defeat the 5 scarecrows, one after the other. An aura gathers in his fist, and with it, he delivers a devastating punch to the blood. He receives notification of the completion of the mission and the end of the mission. A newbie friend takes a look at them, saying that seeing this gives him a good feeling. Then he falls from exhaustion, says that he wanted something of his level, and asks how these blood can be a friend to a newbie. She is closer to the level of a teacher, and by comparing any damage to the body, he says that he understands the purpose of healing damage, but what does he mean by accelerating growth? He is glad that it is a legendary item, but he does not know how it will be used. He wonders if it is possible to become smarter by wrapping it around his head. He tries it out and realizes that he will still be stupid. Throughout his life, he keeps him away, saying that it is good that no one is watching. Do not worry, no one is watching except me and some of the viewers, some of whom are still not subscribed yet. He mentioned saying that treating his injuries will be of no use to him, as he is actually in his best condition when he dies, and comes back to life again, so he decides selling it when he returns will most likely be expensive because it is a legendary item. While flipping through the storeroom, he notices the egg he obtained when he dismantled the mosquitoes. He says that perhaps the piece of cloth will work on the egg since it speeds up growth. After a while, he says that perhaps the matter did not work, so he should just sell it, and before that, he takes a piece of cloth and finds that it breaks into scales, and a crack appears on the egg. He begins to imagine what will appear from it. It may be a predatory monster. The crack in the egg increases until it breaks, and a very bright light appears from it. When the light fades, we see transparent wings and small hands. It seems that what was in it is a small pound, which opens its eyes while he was shocked by her appearance. She comes out and begins to walk yawning. He extends his finger to her, saying that she is smaller than he expected. He surprises her. She bites him, and he throws her with force, hitting the ceiling and landing on her face. She says that she is hungry. He is surprised by what he heard. She repeats saying that she is hungry. He puts his hand in his pocket and takes out a piece of candy for her, which Tom nods in, refusing. He asks him what she wants him to do, so he points himself to Tom Pageant, and after a while we see that she is drinking his blood. He asks her to stop eating, so she asks him to wait so that she can help him stop the bleeding, so she licks the place where she bit her. After thinking about it, he says that he got the egg from a mosquito, so it is a mosquito pound, and he says his arm is itching for her to interrupt, saying that he was somewhat ill. She orders the servant to bring her dessert. He grabs her and begins crushing her, asking her to repeat what she said, to say that it was a delicious meal, and to thank her servant. He increases the pressure to thank her butler for the precious meal. He tells her to forget it, and introduces himself, and asks her about whom. She says that she cannot remember. He says that she looks like a mosquito. She remembers who she is, and says that she is the fairy that will appear in the end. He asks her if she was going to save the world. She says no, because she made a promise that she would eat all living creatures when the world ends. He is surprised by what this little girl says. He asks if this creature is. The little boy is able to devour everyone and says that this is nonsense. But after thinking about it, he says that his blood is poisonous, so toxic that it was able to kill the goblin when she touched his arm, while she was still fine even though she drank it. He shames him, saying that he cannot use the battle assistant skill on her as she is not. He is hostile towards her, and he also does not know her level or what her abilities are, and it seems that he will not be able to get rid of her, so he will be satisfied and make her an animal. He is the pet. He thinks about this while she has finished digesting and asks him for another meal. He tells her that he will assume that she will devour the entire world or whatever, so he names her because he cannot call her Pant every time. He offers to call her Ranyan. She tells her servant that it is a good name. He says that it is good that she likes the name. She says that it is more like the process of the end of the world in the language of the fairies. It seems that fate is playing its role. He says that he will put this aside and says that since she will follow him, he wants her to she promises him one thing and one thing only, which is not to eat humans. She asks him if he is also concerned about this. He says that he does not care about others, but for her to eat it. He says asking, even if she is very, very hungry. He says if she was really starving to the point of death to go and eat someone else, but not. He, in return, will give her a little of his blood to agree, saying that fairies prefer a balanced diet. He says to himself that it would be unsatisfactory if he ruined her diet. She asks him what those things are and asks if they are human. He says with pride that this place is here, and is like a field of glory for the victor, paying attention to something. He asks her to wait, and asks why one of the bloods is split in two. He says that it is impossible that he did this. The system shows a notification that he has added the brave energy trait to the battle assistant skill. He thinks for a while, then stops one of the bloods. They say that there is no need to think, and it is better for him to try the matter and test it himself. He hits hard. She smashes part of the doll to alert Ranyan. She asks her servant about the wonderful sush, and she wants to try this too, so that Bush explodes the doll's head. She recognizes the blood of the target and gets up again to prepare for the fight. She begins walking towards him and surrounds him, and says that the target has been identified as Bushra Tariq and the lock is being unlocked again. And while he was shocked by what he hears him being surprised by one of the dolls pointing at the pile of broken furniture. He starts moving the furniture out of the way, so Ranyan smells a fragrant scent that he said is coming from that place. It seems that she was referring to this skeleton. She takes a bone, saying that it is smart, and begins to swallow it. He takes the bone from her and orders her to eat dead people as well. He turns away. The greatness of this man to God is that he notices under his hand a letter in which he reads, "I have committed many grave mistakes." He says that it has a dark beginning and asks me to read it for him. It has been 3 days since the difficulty rose to a difficult level. The situation is becoming more and more urgent. Most of the children born in this toxic atmosphere with skills have died, and the abilities were unable to bear it, and they began to die one by one. Hope is still fading away. The human race will inevitably become extinct from this earth. He wonders if this is true. According to this message and the windows that he saw when he entered this place, this is the future of the world in which he lives. But how do all the users die? Skills, abilities, and even those of high rank among them. With that simplicity, he reads at the end of the letter that all the survivors are thinking of doing the same thing as him, and he continues, saying that Saint Johann took his own life 3 days ago, and Professor Yusuker blessed him yesterday. Saying that nothing is mentioned about the author of the letter. You find Rana, a stone, and the maid asks what it is. He says that it is a stick stone, but it is different from the one he has. She asks him if it belongs to Mr. Heikel. He orders her to give him the stone. As soon as he held it, he was struck by an intense light, and he fixed his arm. A halo emerges from the stone, and the mark on it disappears. It then explodes, causing pain to Hyun. After this is over, he looks at the palm of his hand to notice that the symbol is engraved on it. The system tells him that the entities are watching him. A black mirage appears above him and begins to contain Taha. Rana runs away, asking him to find his way out and return by himself. He is covered by this mirage. He suddenly finds himself in an empty space and begins to wonder about his whereabouts.